Welcome to Meditation.Podcast. I'm Peter.
I'm Jeff.
Let's begin. In episode 1, we will be covering the following. Are you breathing right now? Meditation, what the word actually means. Common objects of meditation. And then we'll do a short guided meditation at the end, the awareness of breath. Anything you want to add, Jeff?
Oh, that sounds good. Let's go.
Very good. So meditation, the word means, from the dictionary, to think deeply or focus one's mind for a period of time. Another definition, to think deeply or carefully about something. So to me, this implies concentrating the mind on one object or maybe a couple of objects for a while and considering that, looking at it. It could be a passive awareness of it, just sort of looking at it, whatever it is, if it's a thought, or it could be a more active one. Compared to the normal state of mind where you think about a lot of things. The etymology, which is where the word meditation originally came from, like what language. We use it a lot in English, but originally it was a Latin word. I believe it's pronounced meditationem, but eventually that means a thinking over. And that comes from an earlier word, meditare, to meditate, think over, reflect. And that even traces back to an earlier, smaller root word, med, to take appropriate measures or meditative discourse on a subject. And this is my favorite one, continuous calm thought upon some subject. There are many different systems of meditation. I've learned several. Jeff has learned several, and we practice the ones that are sort of suitable, I think, for our own constitutions. Some of these systems provide what I refer to as a natural sequence, progressing from the different objects that you can meditate on, from external physical objects, and then over time, learning to meditate on internal, kind of more subtle objects and concepts, which is a little bit more difficult to do at first, at least it was for me. First, I just had to learn how to focus my attention on something out there for a while. And then when I was good at that, it was easier for me to, for example, imagine having my awareness centered in my head or in my heart or down below in my belly. Jeff, what's your take on that idea?
So I kind of think of a taxonomy of meditation based on three things, one of which is the object of meditation. The next one is sort of the state that you're trying to maintain while in the meditation. So sometimes that's concentration. It might be loving kindness is kind of a common one. It could be just being peaceful and happy. Like that's one that people want to have where maybe they're not as focused on a specific thing as I just want to feel better. And then the third axis of the taxonomy would be the ultimate goal, which some systems have and some systems don't. But you can think of that as like, I want to be enlightened or I want to have mindfulness. And that's a long-term goal. That's not going to happen this time you meditate or next time you meditate, but it's something you work on over years.
In my case, I was just seeking just call it peace of mind, like a way to reduce the numbers of thoughts per second, and also the context switching, thought to thought to thought. Some thoughts are negative thoughts that are painful, and then whenever you have a painful thought, a whole set of other things happens in the body, which can lead to like depression. So what I found, and I think for me it was coincident with growing up in the tech industry in Silicon Valley, and especially subject areas like cybersecurity, which is just filled with bad news. And so as a balance to that, I found that different meditative practices were just a way to practice concentrating on one thing or no thing, to balance out the many things that you have to think about on the job. So as long as the system led me to sort of a peace of mind, or the ability to kind of return to peace of mind after being shaken up, then it sort of seemed like a worthwhile practice. Which leads to why meditate? So in the spirit of open source software, meditation is free and open source, and also something that you can practice alone, which is kind of cool because sometimes you're just home alone, bored, and rather than getting into trouble, you can actually sort of practice exercising your mind. And there's all sorts of studies out there that correlate mental and physical wellness with meditation practice. Definitely easy to find. There's a few of them listed below from some reputable entities.
And not getting into trouble is sounds like sort of a joke, but that was actually one of the but one of the first things that the Buddha mentions about meditation. One of the first benefits is that you are harmless while you are doing it.
No. And then a quote here from Myra Lewin. She's the founder of the Hale Pule Ayurveda and Yoga Institute. I believe they're based in Bali. When I first met Myra, she was based in Kauai. And she's a very wise spirit, and teaches this subject, Ayurveda, which is a kind of holistic, healthy living. And so she wanted to emphasize that when you begin to practice meditation, your mind runs around. Definitely mind does, and that's natural. As the practice develops, which kind of implies you have to continue to practice meditation to get a result, we develop an awareness of ourselves beyond the mind and body. And that is really a letting go rather than trying to make something happen. So to me, that was just sort of all about not trying to do meditation to get something, but just letting go of things, particularly thoughts. So yeah, we worked on this list of things from different meditation frameworks that at least we're familiar. It's not a complete list, but just sort of the common ones that are often taught, when we say to sit and meditate on something. Aside from a problem at work, I mean, you can sit and just actively concentrate on a problem at work or in life, which is great. But other things that you can meditate on if you just want to do, like, I just call them mind exercises, learning to concentrate, practicing concentration. Just like the more you practice something like writing code, or the more you practice reading code, or the more you practice swinging a golf club, the better you get at it. So the more you practice concentrating your mind or your awareness, the easier it gets and the better it gets. So concentrating on a candle flame or an external object like a dot on a piece of paper hanging on the wall, just staring at it for a while and noticing what's going on in your mind when that happens. And then whenever your mind wanders, bringing your awareness back to the candle flame. One of my favorites is breath, because it's always there. Like, you don't need a candle. And most of the time, I realize I'm not breathing. which is a good thing to notice because then you can breathe. This class uses the breath as the primary object of meditation. There's some other things other exercises that we'll have, but at least when we started making this, that was the thought. A little later on, when you become a little more comfortable with locating your awareness and holding it on things, there are locations throughout the body that you can focus your awareness on. It's kind of easy to feel your foot when someone steps on it, or when you stub your toe. It's kind of easy to feel your stomach when you're hungry, but can you feel your stomach when you're not hungry? And so bringing your awareness down to your stomach and feeling it, or not necessarily feeling it, but just bringing your awareness there, and whatever happens, happens. There's a lot of locations that have been defined throughout different meditation frameworks. And interesting things happen to you when you concentrate on these areas. And I think it's a very personal thing. So one way to refer to that type of meditation is mindfulness of body. That's one way that I refer to it. It's probably technically wrong, but that's okay. Another common object of meditation is just a picture. It could be a real picture, or it could be a mental image of someone who inspires you, or a visualization of any kind. So if you are religiously inclined, maybe a picture of a saint. If you're abstractly inclined, maybe the picture of a cool geometric design. And then also looking at that same mental impression that it makes and concentrating on that with your eyes closed after you've gotten good at looking at the real one. And then another one that I really like is what I'll call sound or mantra. Mantra is a Sanskrit word, which kind of means mental tool. Man means mind, and tra is the location where something happens, or a tool or an instrument. So a mantra, I think of it as a mental tool where you're just repeating the sound over and over again, maybe 40 times, maybe 108 times. You can repeat it out loud. You can repeat it silently. And then you can even move beyond repeating it silently and just sort of project the idea of the sound internally, as if it were just sort of a subtle vibration. And sometimes it can be just a single sound. Sometimes it can be a sequence of like 40 syllables. Yeah, and we'll dig into more detail on those later. Really any object or even no object, like emptiness, like concentrate on the idea of emptiness. Or not even try to utilize the faculty of concentration, but just sitting with an empty mind, which is very, very difficult without having practiced other mental exercises first. A location in space, like bring your awareness to a location above your head or behind your body, if that's even possible. It can sound like a preposterous idea at first, but that's why this is a practice. It's like an exploration to see what you experience from trying to do that. Or another one is absorption in infinite space, which is open to interpretation. Another one that's good, particularly in the maybe early stages of meditation, and even later on, is just what I refer to as a detached awareness. I'm sure I'm not the only one to say that, of the active contents of the mind, or the mind stream, or the mindful awareness of emotions. So rather than engaging with the thoughts or engaging with the feelings, sort of taking a step back and observing what's going on. There's a thought about, maybe you see someone walking by and there's a thought about that individual, and then a reaction to that thought. And you can either sort of participate with those thoughts and lead them, or you can sort of just take a step back and notice that and go, my gosh, all of these thoughts just happened when I saw that person. Let me return to the breath. Or just let it play out without engaging with it. I think, Jeff, this is somewhat of based on a Buddhist meditation. Is that even something I can say?
Yeah. So there are, in different schools of Buddhism, a very large number of potential meditation objects. And in the Theravadan system, this got formalized into 40 specific types. So a couple things about that. One is that maybe you think there's a lot of these. How do I pick? Don't waste time picking. If you don't know which one, just use your breath. You've always got it with you. It's very handy. You can change later on down the road if you want to change. Your breath is like kind of the default thing. It always works. It doesn't always work. It mostly works. And it's really convenient. So use that if you don't know. However, if one of these really calls to you and sounds very appealing, go ahead and use that one. It's fine. And like Peter said, it's all kind of experiment. Some of these will work for you and some of them won't. Some will be easy. Some of them maybe you'll use at more advanced stages. So specifically this one on the active contents of the mind is usually considered fairly advanced because it's easy to get carried away with your thoughts and just start daydreaming instead of watching the thoughts. And that's a pretty subtle distinction that is hard to maintain, I think, for most people when they start. But yeah, if there's one that's appealing, go for it. If you can't figure it out, don't spend time trying to figure it out. Just use your breath. It's great.
A couple more. Intentional projection of a feeling or an idea, such as holding compassion in your heart for yourself and others. That's kind of an idea or a feeling or a location combined into one. Yeah. And there are a lot of these that you can probably imagine. But generally speaking, it seems experimentally and experientially that when you're having negative thoughts about some other or even yourself, if you intentionally project good thoughts like a kind of a compassion, it doesn't even have to be like an act of love. It can just be a peaceful coexistence type of thing for that other person or self. It kind of helps balance things out for me. It makes it easier than to have a calmer mind. And then the sense of self or self-inquiry, kind of asking the question, who am I as a process for where does the thought I originate? I think there's a gentleman named Sri Ramana Maharshi who is somewhat famous for this style of inquiry. And on that note, shall we try an awareness of breath exercise? Before I do, one little quote box. All sadhanas, and sadhanas is another Sanskrit word for like a practice, a discipline, or a method, a style of meditation. All sadhanas or methods are for simply tricking the mind. The trick is to not let the mind spread out in the form of thoughts. So kind of what Jeff was saying earlier, why mindfulness is actually a more advanced exercise, because it's very difficult to not let the mind spread out in the form of thoughts when you begin to engage with the mind stream. And that's from Baba Hari Das. He was an Indian yogi who had a school, and he's from that book, Ashtanga Yoga Primer. So let's begin. Sit comfortably. If you're on the floor, that's good. If you're in a chair, that's good. With the back and spine straight, or optionally lay down flat. For me, I just like to sit in a chair or on a pillow. Close the eyes. Touch the tongue to the roof of the mouth. If you can, curl the tongue back a bit, or if that's not comfortable, just touch the tongue to the roof of the mouth behind the teeth. Are you breathing right now? Notice the natural activity of the breath. Don't really make any attempt to change it just yet. Just notice it. Notice the sound the breath is making. Maybe on the inhale, you can hear it. Maybe on the exhale, you can hear it differently. Just notice that sound. Notice the pattern that the breath is taking. Is it a smooth wave on the inhale? Or perhaps maybe it was a bit choppy with some breaks? And either way is totally okay. Just begin to notice the pattern your breath is taking. And notice where you're breathing from. Are you using the nose or your mouth? Are you using both? And are you driving that breath from the nose or the throat or the chest? Or are you perhaps driving that breath from a little bit deeper in the belly, the diaphragm, abdomen area? Just how is the breath coming into the body? How is it leaving the body? And where is the engine? Is it up near the top or down at the bottom? See if you can notice the temperature of the breath. Perhaps as it's coming in through the nose, you can feel how warm or cool it is. If you're exhaling through the nose, you might feel it. If you're exhaling it through the mouth, it might feel a little cooler, maybe. Just notice the temperature. Now start to notice the pause or the space in between the inhale and the exhale. As you finish inhaling, before you move to the exhale, there may be a little pause there. How long did that pause last for? And similarly, notice the pause after the exhale before you return to the inhale. And we'll just continue for a few more breaths. And this is something you can always do on your own. I recommend 10 breaths. Just sit down for 10 breaths and notice what's going on with the breath. All right, and that is the end of Meditation Podcast episode 1. Jeff, any parting words?
Just that you should go and meditate when you can, and that there are two ways you can kind of make mess up with this. One is to not meditate at all, which is common, And the other is that you can go, this is awesome, I have to do it all the time, which is also common. Try and take it easy. Try and do it every day. Start off small, but be consistent every day and build up over time.
Well said. We will see you again for episode 2, and we'll dig a little bit more into some of the technical descriptions of the meditation frameworks, and do some more guided meditation. Thank you.